Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of Human Design Coffee Talk. Amy Lee is going to be joining us today. We're super excited to have her. She's a 5/1 mental projector.
Hello. Okay, we'll try this now.
Let's do this again.
So before, people were asking about, hold on, I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, Amy's asking if you can send the request again.
Yes.
People were asking about Amy's stuff in her variables, kitchens, feeling, guilt. It's working!
There you are!
Wow, y'all, feeling like a dinosaur over here.
You did it!
That was enough for me.
Is this your Instagram Live debut?
This is my Instagram Live debut. So first of all, I thought it was going to be a recording. So I didn't realize until about 10 minutes ago, I was like, wait a minute. I think this is a live conversation that other people, I'm not, I didn't quite realize what was going on, but here I am. Thank you for your patience. Sorry to keep people waiting. Glad to.
Oh no.
No,
I love
it's all
it.
good.
You're here.
You're not like normally bopping around in the Instagram world, so it's all good. It's all good.
Wow. Well, obvious now, so everybody knows.
Yay!
Yay.
Well, we're excited you made it and you're here,
Mhm.
and welcome to your first Instagram Live.
Thank you. I didn't even know that. I didn't understand. So now I'm thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, you've been highly requested, so yeah, we were like, we got to make it happen.
Mhm.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, and hi people out there.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So if anybody has any questions, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be in conversation. And then when we take questions, if you put them in there, then we won't skip them, if we have time for questions. So just let anybody know if you have questions. And yeah, so we're stoked to have you. Amy is part of Human Design Collective, and I had to have a foundation reading for my Living Your Design class, and Amy came highly recommended by Brayton. And I was like, okay. So I had my reading with her, and I was like, holy shit. That was powerful. And so then I took LYD through IHDS, and then I heard that you were teaching rave ABCs and rave cartography, and I was like, or rave ABCs at the time, and I was like, yes, I'm in. And so I joined you and John for that, and then Teresa hopped in cartography, and you're just such an incredible guide for human design. Like, I tell everybody that has any interest in taking Living Your Design, I'm like, go to John and Amy. It's
Wow.
just, it's incredible the way that the information like flows through you, the way that you can articulate it, and the way that you can make it so understandable and also have such great depth. I'm just like, what?
You.
Yeah, I just had to express that because, I mean, you made my human design education really intriguing and exciting, and it made me excited about it and curious about it, and it wasn't boring.
Oh, good. Well, that's so sweet. Thank you for that recognition. And it was so wonderful having you guys in the class. And it's really special for me too to get to have that initial contact with people in a reading, and then get to see, no matter where they are, how long they've been in human design already, but then if they do decide to do further study, to then get to see, you know, the growth through that and share that together, and then get to see people just fly off and do all kinds of cool stuff. So I love that you guys are doing this. It would never occur to me to do something in this way. So I love that you guys are doing it, and
Yeah.
I love you both. So
Can I just comment how I almost wore this tank top and we would all be matching?
oh my god! Oh my
Stop.
god! Weird.
I'm gonna put it on now. I'm gonna put it on over my other tank top. So this is happening.
If I had realized that I was going to be on video and we were going to be live, I'd probably, you know, I might have like put some effort, but I just came out of the garden. Anyway,
no, it's all good. No effort needed.
No one cares here. Usually we are like just rolled out of bed and you know, it's called coffee talk. I think even the name Human Design Coffee Talk was meant to reflect the laxness of it. Just like, this is just friends having a conversation, you know, we're just chatting it up.
Well, it's very earthy. It feels very with you guys in this color.
Yes. It's like clay.
Dave says he's totally wearing the same tank top right now.
Fit check.
Awesome. Oh my god, I love this.
Oh, I love it.
All right. So the biggest topic that when people found out that you were joining us in the comments and DMs, and even when we put out a call of like, who would you like to see on Coffee Talk? They were like, Amy Lee, let's talk about mental projectors, because nobody's talking about them. Nobody talks. There's not a lot of information as far as people sharing about it. And so, yeah. Do you want to talk about being a mental projector?
Sure. I think it's
open-ended question.
Yeah, I know.
I'm probably least comfortable talking about that in a way. I probably have a greater sense of just security and clarity talking about pretty much everything else in human design. So, but it is a really important conversation, and it's I feel like it's been kind of growing, and maybe that's just because of how much human design is expanding, but it's amazing how many mental projectors are out there and how many people are having pretty rich conversations about what does it really mean. And I think Ra made it really clear that for all of us, especially for projectors, that we would really probably have to do some work to sort ourselves out. So I feel like that's really happening, and it's pretty cool to get to see. There are, we did a workshop in December with a bunch of projectors, and I know there's a really big Facebook group for mental projectors. So there are a lot of them out there, and they're deep and rich and freaky and weird, and we're like our own weird little species, I think, within human design. Yeah.
So what did you think when you first saw your chart, how did you learn about human design?
I was like grabbed by a reflector who was basically like, you need to study this, and I think she was one of the first kind of mom friends when I had a new baby, and we would talk about all kinds of stuff. I was studying psychology at the time, and we would talk about astrology and psychology and new age stuff and spirituality. And at some point pretty early on in our relationship, she said, you got to check out this human design thing. All I know is I'm a reflector, and I don't really know what it means. And I've tried to understand what to do with it, and I can't figure it out. And I think you're going to be able to figure it out. So I need you to go study this thing. And I went down the rabbit hole, but for the first, probably for the first 5 to 7 years that I was playing with it, I was really focused on nothing below the channel level, really. Really just type, strategy, authority, and centers, and then working with people to understand that. So the first reading I had was with, one of the first readings I had was with John Martin, and I did my foundation courses with him, splenic projector, crazy splenic projector, Jedi dude over in Hawaii, and he really blasted me with like talking about what a mental projector was, and then also looking at me in the context of my family with a bunch of emotional generators. And And it really made perfect sense to me. And actually it helped me a lot to reframe so many things I had been working really hard on in therapy and feeling really confused about. So as soon as I saw that, and as soon as individuality, my mental capacity, my body openness, my energetic and emotional sensitivity, how important timing is, how freaky I am, how invisible I can be, how chameleon-like I can be, all of those things really hit me, and it was really a relief. It actually left me feeling like there were a lot of things in my material life that I knew were going to need to adjust, and had no idea how to figure out how to manage my material life. But in terms of my relationship with myself psychologically, it really liberated something in me in a way. And I felt like a whole load of stuff that I thought I was going to have to work on and fix about myself just got shoved off the table, and left me with a whole different set of problems. But it was, at least it wasn't the same problems that I thought I'd had since childhood. So so it was really, really profound, and it was really like an awakening and a reframing of everything in my life, really.
Wow. What were some of the things that you kept kind of churning with in therapy that human design gave you permission to just not fuck with anymore?
There was a lot. I was going through a lot around trying to kind of understand certain aspects of my antisocialness and my resistance to being able to join groups, to sort of toe party lines. I was the kind of person up until that point where I could be 100% all in, very chameleon. I could completely take on the identity of whatever group, body of knowledge, system, social setting I was involved with, and I could be all in with it for a certain amount of time, and then it would get to a point where something would just pop, and I either couldn't go any further, or I couldn't maintain that identity any longer. And I really thought that was a problem. So that was one thing I got to let go of. I got to let go of working really hard to try to find my feelings. And I have a completely open solar plexus. So I got to let go of trying to find my feelings and trying to match other people's emotional intensity, which I was really trying to do. Really just explained a lot in relationship, and a lot of things that people had said to me over the years about just being cold, being chameleon-like, being kind of hard to pin down, not putting myself out there enough, not being sort of out front enough, not fulfilling my potential enough. I had a lot of, fifth line projection. You have so much potential, you can do anything, and so much, every teacher from when I was really young, teachers, groups, and then later spiritual teachers, employers. It was always like, when they'd first meet me, it was like, you're amazing. You can rise to the top and run this thing. And I somehow was never able to quite fulfill the potential people seemed to want for me. And that was confusing for me for a long time. Those are some of the main things I let go of. And then also really understanding that I was raised in a family of projectors really helped me heal a lot about whatever my hang-ups were about what my family should have been, or what family life was supposed to be, or what my parents should have been like, or how wounded I was because they did things in such an odd way. And then it reframed my own relationship with my daughter. And that was really, really healing to kind of realize none of us really had a chance. And the funny thing, in my family, my mother, father, sister, and I were all projectors. And in our penta, we have a fully functional penta, so fully filled, all 6 channels of penta completed in our group of 4. And my mother broke it. She couldn't hang with it. And I learned I could really understand a lot about why. So it healed a lot in relation to my family and helped me understand a lot about my mother, my sister, and my father. So very powerful in ways that I don't know that therapy could ever have gotten to. Yeah, just like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was really grateful for that.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have that experience with it, and that's why it's so, like, that's why human design has been so healing for most of us, and why we just are like, oh wow, I finally have a reason to explain these things that I beat myself up about and I couldn't change, and I worked so hard to try to change. Oh, I'm not supposed to change this.
Yep. Yeah, it gave me a lot of compassion for my parents, and a lot of compassion for my young self, that tried so hard to live up to so many things, and I just couldn't quite do it. But then I also got to see, I think, the strength of my individuality and the heretic in me, which I didn't really fully get the strength of. But, you know, I could sort of play the game and play along and get the approval and ride along with what I was supposed to be doing to a certain extent. And then there'd be a certain point where it was like, this is not the truth. And I can't do it. So I'm either going to call it out or leave. And that became a really clear pattern in my life that human design helped me to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's beautiful to hear you talk about your experience with that too, because several times when we were in class, you would say, human design can't fix everything. Like, this is something, like somebody would bring something up and you'd say, this is something that human design, you know, it's not the end all be all. But at the same time, there's like great healing in the permission when you're ready to receive the information. So it's this interesting like dance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot that I think the thing with human design is it requires so much. It sort of demands so much personal responsibility. I mean, you really have to take responsibility for your own body, for your own experience. And I love seeing those early videos of Ra when he sort of had his whole like spiritual weirdo get-ups, and you know how that shifted over time, and how clear about, you know, I'm not here to be your guru. I'm not going to take responsibility for you. And it's been interesting for me as an analyst or reader, teacher, to work that out for myself with my particular makeup. But I think it requires a lot of us in terms of taking responsibility for ourselves. And then along with that and then if you've got healing work to do, or you've got things you need help with, and you got to figure out who and what is right for you to be able to handle that. Just knowing your own human design is probably not going to be enough. You need to use that, you know, design, follow that nature in yourself and that intelligence in yourself to find the support you need, or to find the right people you need to have in your life. So yeah, I've gone through that.
So is it what led you on the path of like professional, taking like foundation courses and kind of moving through like what, I mean, you're first line obviously, but
yeah, I mean, I took it really slow. I had my initial readings, and then the full set, like a package set of the foundational course with John Martin. And that was a real wild ride and wasn't super academic. So when I got to the end of that, and he was so radical about, you know, do the experiment. He almost didn't even want to like give you too much information until he really preferred to like challenge you on whether or not you were actually living your own design and being in your own frequency. So after that, I was sort of mixing human design and counseling work, which for me was really mostly body-centered mindfulness, sitting with people and treating them according to their design when I had access to their information. I thought I was going to go to school for therapy, and I hung out for a long time, and I went back and forth about analyst training for a long time. I got really hung up on this, like, oh, it's 2 years or it's this much money and I don't know, and is it worth it? And And then it wasn't until 2016 that I'd been using it. I had been working with it with clients for a long time. And finally I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna take more classes. And I started taking more classes, and it was really just one step at a time. And everything sort of expanded. And then it's so funny to me now looking back, because there were years there where I was like, oh, I should have, I found human design in 2009. I should have just gone into the analyst training right away, all this stuff. But I did it in 2016, and then I ended up meeting John in my first analyst training class, and that became this just really powerful energy. And so if anything had gone a different way, that wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So much of what I'm doing now with human design is out of that partnership. I think that carried a lot through.
So you were like 7 years in before you even, wow, yeah.
Before I did analyst training, yeah.
Wow. That's one full cycle.
Yeah, I think I got really, it really hit me. I got a real kind of like punch in the gut with those early teachers that I came in contact with. Were pretty hardcore about you better know what's going on experientially here before you go too far with all of this information. And it wasn't as easy to access, even not that long ago, but it wasn't as easy to access all the information even then. And I think I had to take it slow. For me, my experience of having a first line body is I like to study, but it can't just be a mental study. I have to experience it, and I have to be able to relate it to something that I see and experience in my actual life and in my relationships. So I found it really hard to go deeper in the information than what I could connect with in my real tangible life and relationship.
I would also imagine that presents its own challenges, having fixed head and ajna and individual channels. There's the deafness there, and it's like sometimes if it just doesn't click, it doesn't click, and you're just going to get it when you get it.
Yeah, I've really realized I kind of always thought of myself as pretty smart, but it wasn't until I really became an adult, and then later when I found human design, that I realized I'm really not an intellectual. I'm really not that I can be heady, but my individuality up here is so knowing based, and it's so my own weirdo obsessive process that I actually, maybe if I had a more mind, if I had a different kind of mind, I could maybe have been more book studious about it, but my mind has limits with that,
And we're all kind of getting a flavor of that 4323 right now.
Exactly.
And it's interesting how you can see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I've been noticing in conversations, I'm like, I can't get the words out. It's just my thought expression is not as fluid right now.
Yeah. Well, that's for me the experience of even reading. Like, listening is easier, but if I'm reading, if I'm reading like a human design text, or I'm reading something from Ra, I can often only get a couple paragraphs in, and then I'm getting my own download, and then I have to like stop and sit with that for a while. So it takes me a long time to get through material, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like his work too is, obviously you can read it and that's great, but for me, I really feeling cognition. I feel his work when I hear it, and I'm an auditory learner as well, but it's almost like you're meant to hear his voice. And even when I'm reading something, that I think a lot of the texts are just transcribed from him speaking, right? And even when I'm reading something, I can hear his voice in my head saying it.
Yeah, I think I've gotten more like that over the years too. The auditory is so much easier for me, and I think I used to be actually a pretty good writer, and it's getting worse the older I get. I don't know, maybe it'll come back around, but it's getting harder and harder. And
I wonder if it has to do with like right brain, right mind, maybe.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it's a much more fun process for me to get to find the words acoustically. It feels like work to do it in writing. So I love it. I love that he just went with that as a 4323, you know, to just and let it carry itself, and then leave the rest of us to have to figure out how to decipher those people. I'm sure you guys have experienced this. The number of people that are like, I can't read that guy. I don't know. Please translate. I don't know what he's saying. What is he talking about? It's so much more efficient. If you were going to write it, you could say it. So, you know, you could say it pretty efficient.
There was a funny Facebook post going around in one of the human design groups. This woman had perfectly described like raw talking, but it was like, here's this orange tree, and then over here's this cloud. We'll get back to that orange tree, but then we're gonna look at this seed, and look at the cloud, and look at the tree. Look now back to the, you know, and it was like I think I screenshot it. It was like perfectly. It felt like Ra was speaking as she was just making this up. Like, over here.
Meanwhile,
even saying his phrases,
or like how to drive a red car.
Yeah.
Talking about oranges and clouds, and it's like, what are we talking about?
Yes.
Very well. And welcome. Hi, hello, and welcome.
Hi.
Yeah, she even put some of his catchphrases in there.
Yeah.
And then just constantly saying, and what to do, you know? What to do.
That was one of the things I also really appreciated about taking your classes, was that you would also like pipe in with like, you know, the way that Ross said this and this and that, and you would just like, it's just there, like in you, ready to come out when, you know, you're receptive too. But I mean, it was just like, and you could feel that frequency when you were talking too, which was nice.
Yeah, I feel like I really resonate with Ross. I really feel him. And when he speaks truth, it's just like, it just goes right in there. And then I think also, and this may be true of most mental projectors and maybe most head and ajna definition as well, it's I always really know when I'm saying something that isn't my thought, you know. So if I'm going to repeat something, it's difficult for me to repeat something that isn't mine, you know, that didn't come up from my own head without acknowledging and saying, you know, so and so said this, so and so said that, and it sticks in my head. It seems to stick in my head that way too. Like I remember what I picked up that I loved, but it wasn't mine. I didn't create it in that way.
Yeah, I feel like you almost had a way of translating it though, and maybe because you also have the 2343, you're like, I get what he's saying. This is what he's saying.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it gets kind of competitive too. I'm like, he said it this way, but let me say it better. I can find a better way. I can explain it faster. I can do it better.
Uh-huh.
Ready to compete.
So how long were you an analyst? When did you guys start Human Design Collective? That's what I want to talk about.
That probably started somewhere around 2017.
Mm-hmm.
It started pretty quick. And John, I think it was something, you guys will talk to him. He could tell you about it. I think it was something he had been thinking about for a while. And it was a really beautiful invitation. It was a really beautiful synergy that just came about from conversations that we were having. And it still feels like a constant kind of work in progress, trying to figure out, you know, what it is and what we could offer. We tried some different iterations of things. And once we started teaching more, then that's become more of the focus of it. But we liked the idea. It's ironic because I'm not a very collective person in general. But we like the idea of being able to come together with people, but also to have it be sort of loose, you know, like come go, you know, because up, hang out with us, go away, come back, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. Fine. So that came in 2017.
And your website you have so much information in there. And if you take any of their classes, you get access to like this back end of just the things that you guys write. Just amazing. 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 That's why when people are always asking me, like, what should I want to take LYD. I'm like, oh, just make sure you look at Human Design Collective. There's something about two projectors with authorities that we don't often hear about or, get to meet, ego projected and mental projector. And just two projectors just like sinking that information in you. It's just incredible. I can't stop raving about it. Everyone, I'm like, there's even a weekend option. It's so cool. Like everything. I meet a mental projector. I'm like, do you know Amy? Go, here's her website. Everything all the time.
This is a Human Design Collective Stan account.
Yeah.
Because we are always, I feel like in every episode, we're like, by the way.
Human Design Collective. Yeah.
I mean, I think you guys have really kind of role modeled too how to do this as a duo, because I know for me, I didn't even think about really how I could maybe have a business with somebody else and play to each other's strengths, and like how that also eases the load a bit. It's like, okay, you do this really well, I do this really well, let's come together and make this happen. And it feels so good. And I know that's not correct for everybody, but I think sometimes I have to see to believe. I have to see somebody else kind of modeling that for me to be like, oh, what would that be like? I had to respond to it. So I think it was really cool to have both of you as teachers and see how you play to each other's strengths, and you both bring something different to the table.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's not, where we are now, not at all where we started, and we didn't really know what it was going to look like, but it did really organically go that way. And it was funny because at first we were both sort of trying to keep things even, or try to make things fair, or try to, divide everything. We're like, this doesn't work. You do this thing, I do this thing, and there's no point in not just playing to the strengths of each of us. And it's also, I think, certain partnerships, as we all know, certain relationships, especially if you have a really open design, or you have certain openings in your design, it'll bring out characteristics that don't happen when you're on your own. And so I really feel in that business work dynamic, which doesn't even really feel like work, it just feels like an extension of life, that it just kind of emerged that way. And it does feel like it's its own entity. I really feel it when I step away from that it's, what I am on my own is something very different than what happens when that thing comes together.
Yeah. I've definitely noticed. What's that?
That's what you guys are doing as well, right? In in the way you're partnering together.
Yeah. Well, and I keep talking about how nice it is to be partnered with a defined ego. You experience that as well, Amy. It's kind of like, cool, you got that. It also just gives me this like confidence boost. Even it's like, oh, there's anything that I feel insecure about, like Brandy's just like, no, we got this. Well, it's all good, and it just works out. So
yeah, it's an amazing thing to watch. There's so many things that I can see where my system goes with certain things from that open ego place. And then I can just say it out loud and listen to the ego interpretation of it. And it's like, wow, it wouldn't have even occurred to me to look that way, or to stand up to what's happening in the way that the ego is so naturally just standing up to it. So it's really a ride. The ego is to be able to partner with and ride with somebody else's ego is really cool.
Agreed.
Good. Find the right flavor for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me as a split, Teresa bridges my split with her 44. So it's like, it just feels like butter. And she'll be doing some things that are totally like managerial. And I'm like, I don't even think about that. Or if I try to do that, I get frustrated. And she's just like, I got it. I'm good. I got it. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I really see where I tried to be that in other places. And then I feel this expansion and energy when I don't have to. And I'm like, oh, that's not me. you know, so it's cool to see that. But it is cute. I call it cute, the little open ego. When when I'm like, oh, that's your ego, like it's okay. You know?
Right, right. You look at her and be like, oh, you're gonna trip out on that. Like, oh, that you don't have to do that. You know.
That's totally, that's
Yeah.
totally it.
And I think it's actually a great thing that I would want to share with mental projectors, actually. I think a lot of mental projectors struggle with this sense of how am I going to get what I am out? Like, how is what this is in here going to get out? And I was thinking about what a gift it is to me to be able to do session work with people, because as a projector, and especially as a mental projector, where this is the jazz that I've got going constantly, it is such a gift to me to get to focus my mind on somebody else and to get to go deep into somebody else. And if I didn't have I think I knew from very early on as an adult that I needed to have some version of that. I needed to have some format to be able to connect with people deeply so that I could just point my mind at them. And if I don't have enough of an opportunity for that, my mind really starts to eat me alive. It's really not healthy. I really need things in life to engage my mind with. So I think a lot of mental projectors struggle with, well, how am I going to get to manifest or find my work or express myself in the world, or how is this all going to come about? And it really is kind of a mystery, I think. But it speaks to how powerful strategy and authority is. That, and just the process of recognition and being willing to wait for real recognition. You can't manufacture that. And it's not really worth accepting a substitute for that. And I think it's there, you know, I think it's there waiting for each of us, especially for non-motorized projectors, mental projectors, knowing that you're going to need some sort of collaborations to work with material, that those can show up, and they will probably show up. Well, they'll show up when they show up. Right? No choice, right? They'll show up when they show up. But in the meantime, you can study and enjoy your frequency, and trust yourself and trust your own taste in what you're doing, and then wait for the surprise of who's going to show up and see you, and see what kind of ride that's going to take you on. And me, being a mental projector, is all about just going on trips. It's just like going on rides all the time.
Well, and having such openness, and with your cognition, your feeling cognition, it's like that feels like it would just be like,
yeah,
very intense.
Yeah, it is really, really intense, really sensitive, really, really sensitive. That when there's a frequency of truth that's happening, and I think that's also why for me it's hard to get too far. The way I communicate can be very heady, but the way I experience things, it's hard to go too far in a bunch of detailed information. My system I feel like my system is always looking for some kind of frequency, feeling, recognition of truth and flow happening. So that's kind of what my system is, looking for all the time. And I guess the content itself doesn't matter that much. I see truth and resonance with human design in a lot of different teachings, pieces of it in a lot of different teachings. To me, it's like the feeling of being able to recognize a frequency and then to see it in multiple places, and now here's the truth happening, and I recognize it.
Yeah. For me, with feeling cognition, when I learned about human design, it was like, now I have words to articulate what I was feeling, the frequencies that I was feeling, but I had no idea. I would feel like almost static when talking to somebody. They'd be, and then now looking back, if I know what their chart looks like, I'd be like, oh, it was that part of them speaking. It was their conditioning speaking, but I wasn't from a judgy place. It was just felt off. And so it's like understanding design gives me that roadmap to articulate the frequency. It's really interesting for me.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So through your deconditioning process, what was your, like we all kind of have hot spots on our chart. What was your biggest piece of deconditioning? Like, was it a center? What went on with that?
I think probably all of the centers really,
Yeah.
you know, all of them really. But I would say for me, probably ego is the biggest thing for sure. And even now, ego still gets me. It's so intense. It's such a fucker, open ego.
It really is.
So nasty, mean, and be.
Constantly shaking my fist at it.
Get out of my head. Yeah, it's really intense. I think that was a lot of deconditioning process, and probably also the open solar praxis. I mean, being honest, really to tell the truth. And you know, the truth when it comes out of me sometimes, especially in personal relationships, can be kind of cold and hard. It's not warm and fluffy. And so learning how to do that and getting to see handle that and accept the consequences of that. I was just listening to a lecture with a lock, and he was saying something like, how did he describe it? He said something along the lines of, with his emotional process, and I almost feel like any kind of process-based authority is similar. So whether you've got reflector authority or mental projector authority or emotional authority, these process-based authorities are ones that take time. And he said something like, clarity is not really necessarily about clarity. It's more about landing in the moment when you're ready to accept the consequences of what you're about to do. Like you just get to a point where it's like, this is what's happening. And sometimes there's that whole period of time, and it's a period of time that can go on for hours or days or months or years, where we're like running from it. It's like the truth is right here, and we're just like, I'm going to keep up the song and dance over here as long as I can. And then at some point it's just like, great, okay, fine. Okay, fine. This is what's happening. I accept it. And surrendering more and suffering less with those moments, I think, has been a really big part of my deconditioning. And being able to accept the truth sooner, or when I see it, which kind of leads in, you had been asking about, or before we got on, you were talking about guilt.
Yes.
Motivation. And I think that's been a big learning for me with that there were a lot of times in my life before I really understood what was going on with my design, where the truth was like right here, like right next to my face, and I would just be looking the other way, just hoping that it would go away. Like, please go away. Please turn into something else. Please, somebody else deal with this. And as I got older and learned more about it, it became clearer and clearer that this is the truth that I see, and I cannot see it. And I either have to deal with it if it has to do with my own life, or it's probably best for me if I'm in a place where somebody else is open to hearing about it. If nobody's asking, nobody's looking, and there's nothing I can do about it, and everything in me is wanting to pretend it doesn't exist, that's a big way that I know I'm in the wrong place with people. And it's not gonna. It's always that feeling for me of like, oh shit, it's me. Like, oh shit. When I was younger, I think I felt the way I experienced guilt was feeling like, if I see it first, then it must be my fault. I felt that very deeply. And it's a weird kind of almost like inverted narcissistic thing. Like if I have this awareness first and it's something that's unpleasant or difficult, and I see, maybe if I can pretend it's not happening like everybody else seems to be doing, then it won't be real. So that's what I need to do. And over time, I started to really learn, I'm the one who sees it, and it might be, and it may often be that there won't be anybody else in the room who's going to see it, at least not in the same way that I'm seeing it. And then it's my responsibility to own that, or at least to notice who's open to that or not. But it can be kind of a heavy trip, you know, and I got a lot of stuff in my design. It's not super light and fluffy. It's it can be kind of heavy, kind of cold, kind of dark, kind of twisty, melancholic, all kinds of stuff, and kind of a closer, you know. Often things start, you know, transforming, or something happens, things end, or things split, and it's a relief now to understand that that's just my role to play, you know.
Yeah. And John is hope motivation, correct?
Yep.
So how is that working in partnership with somebody? Like, do you notice anything where, like, I don't want to say you guys call each other out, but you know, like, if you're hoping, is he like, hey, hoping, avoiding?
Probably more often goes the other way around, where I'm like, stop trying to fix it. Or no, actually, no, now I'm thinking about it. No, it goes both ways. It'll go both ways, you know. It does go both ways. It's fascinating to see. There are a lot of things in John's design that I just envy. So, or that I have fun. But, you know, I also get to really, really see what I have that I love about myself. And it's, I'm grateful to be able to love my awareness now. You know, I used to feel really plagued by my awareness, really, really burdened by it. And it's a relief to get to love it now, to love my own awareness. So yeah, I think it actually ends up being a nice balance. And we even work with that. We're working with people together. There are certain clients we work with together, or in classes when we work together. We try to balance it out, and we sort of have tabs on each other. It's like, whoa, Amy, it's getting too heavy. Let me bring in some light friendliness, you know, or it's getting too wandery, light and friendly, you know, let's get back to work. Or so it ends up balancing pretty well, I think. But it's very interesting to have those very different motivations and perspectives in life with a partner, someone that you're close to.
Yeah.
But it's so great to know that that's what it is, you know, and then to support each other in it too. Like, you don't have to fix that, you know, or go ahead and fix it. What do you see? You know, whatever it is.
Yeah, my husband's guilt and I'm hope, so it's like, oh.
My husband is innocence and I'm desire. So it's fun how we attract our transference, right? But it is kind of cool, like, knowing that and just being able to support him in being in innocence, because we've been together for a long time, and quite, you know, I used to realize, no, I used to try to push my desire onto him, as we do, right? And I'm like, well, why can't you be more like me? And then I would see him swing into that direction when he was actually really pure in his motivation, just naturally, which is cool to see. But it's, now I can see all the times where I was trying to force him into desire and being active with the motivation. And now it's very different. I'm like, oh, hey, you don't need to take a stance on this, or you don't, you know, and it's more that I can support him in his process.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, and even if you're on opposite ends of it, you're in the same zone, you know, you're in the same team together, which can be, I think, fun when you understand it. Get to watch how it plays out, and that it does tend to play out.
Yep. Yeah, totally. It seems like, and I hear this a lot for projectors, that motivation is a really great signpost for you, because you don't have necessarily this like sacral, that we take that sacral feeling for granted. That's just like sacral yes, sacral no, you know, even being an emotional generator. So it seems like it just offers projectors this really quick, easy way to see kind of what's going on in their own frequency.
Yeah. It's the way I could describe it for myself is I've been in several different situations where, and this is probably the combination of several aspects of my substructure, but where there's something going on and I've got an uneasy feeling and almost like this isn't going to go well. Like this is going to, yeah, have an uneasy feeling, but also this sense of, but I have to pretend everything's okay, or we're just going to hope it works out somehow. And that's become something that I can really recognize as probably a good sign for me to take a step back. You know, either take a step back from what's going on, or take some time with it, certainly before I get further invested in it. So yeah, I think it can be a really great signpost, and especially if it's held that way, because there isn't really, I don't really see that there's any way to do anything with it. It really is an awareness signpost. You know?
Yeah.
I think it's really important for, I mean, when they're ready, for projectors to, you know, dive into that. Because I've noticed a big thing with my projector husband, once he started learning about motivation, it was like definitely a game changer, because he doesn't have that. I mean, he is an energy projector, but he doesn't have that, I don't know. And now he has this instant like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Here's this thing. Okay, now I can reevaluate.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I also think it's really, really a good idea for projectors to just really study other people. Like, don't get too lost in your own design. It'll drive you crazy. Like, definitely study other people. And even if nobody's asking, you know, even if nobody wants to hear from you, maybe especially if nobody wants to hear about it, if you can get a hold of people's information and then you can just observe them, it's a great way to not have to do anything.
Yeah.
But study the people around you. And I think there's a lot we can learn that way. So yeah, both a certain amount of substructure, but I think also a certain amount of just being able to study people in real life and wait and see when somebody starts to ask you for something or starts to notice that you're seeing something and they want to know. I think that's how to go about it. It's really hard. It's kind of painful sometimes, I think, and it can be really hard for mental projectors to get too lost in looking at their own design. You know, study other people, and you're going to learn everything you need to know about yourself. You know?
Well, that goes back to the basics of design, projector, about the other, you know.
Yeah.
Your question isn't who am I? You're not generators. Although that conditioning is great. Like, you need to know who are you to the depth. Because all of us generators are doing it.
So yeah. It's like, you will learn about yourself. It's just not going to be in the way that you think you're, you know, that we're conditioned to do it.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And I think part of that too is when you really study someone else as a projector, you're going to get to see what the effect of that thing you're looking at is on you. You're going to get to find out what you become in the presence of that creature, and what comes out of you, and how well you can handle it, or who you become when you're with them. And that's where I think a lot of the learning about ourselves comes in as projectors. But we need to be studying other people to get to that. You know, I think it becomes really too much of a weird wormhole otherwise, if we're just staring at ourselves.
So how much do you pay attention to your environment consciously?
You mean where I go and?
Yeah. Well, as far as environment, your kitchens, right? Yeah. So it feels like your classes are like kind of like a good like alchemy, mixing things together, seeing things transform, you know. But as far as like your physical.
Yeah. I don't think I pay a ton of attention to it. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
If I pay attention to how I feel on a cognition level,
Mm-hmm.
then that's where I end up. I've been in like kitchen workshop, and whether it's mundane, like literally kitchens, or cooking, or gardening, or somewhere or something, or uh, craft work. I love my sister. My sister is also a mental projector. Um, love crafty work, like not creative, crafty. Like you make the thing a perfect way, and then you make more of them, and
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. On a mundane level, I love all those kinds of things, and then outside of that, where I tend to end up. And even like with the Human Design Collective, we started out, and I thought I was going to really enjoy like writing articles and you know, making content sort of by myself. I don't know why I thought I was gonna like that, but I thought this would be so cool. This would be such a great way for me to study or whatever. But somehow I kept getting moving toward, you know, the people are coming together. We need to talk to the people. We need to like be in this you know, laboratory where things are transforming, and where the way people come in is not the way they go out. You know, for better or worse, whatever it does, but something's happening, and that does feel really natural to me.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, and on a different level, I think just on an open G center level, I do really pay attention to environment, and I do really notice what a deep effect environment has on me wherever I go. So that's always been the case. I've always been very sensitive to that, and yeah, I think that's where the cool thing, or maybe the thing that that is funny to me about it, is that I don't have a ton of people in my personal life, but there are certain people in my life that once I get to know them well enough, I know if I like their frequency, and I know if I can handle their frequency, and I know to what extent I can handle their frequency. So like how often I can, in what kind of context. And then from there, I can just go on the ride, you know. If I like their G center, I'll go wherever, you know. It's a great relief for me. It's like I'm just hitching a ride on wherever the hell you're going, and that's cool. I'm good with it, you know. That's that thing that Ra always said, which is so, you know, so right on for me. It was like, if someone's right for you and you've got an open G center, you're gonna like the places they take you to, and you're gonna like their preferences. And I love that. I love getting to merge someone else's preferences and identity, and then getting to step away from it. It used to be such a terrifying experience. The feeling of like losing somebody once I got really with them. And now there's something about it that's really just fun and liberating and beautiful. One of the first reasons I had the analyst said, you know, you're so lucky you have an open G center. You can go so many places, you can be so many things. And I didn't really get it at first because it felt like such a burden. But now I really, it's a pretty cool thing to get to walk in and out of so many different identities and preferences places. As long as I have the right people, everything else, most other things just kind of flow. So, and then I don't have to micromanage everything so much, which is nice.
That sounds freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I love the open G. And then I love the other piece about G, which was something that I always did that I never really understood why I did, which was a lock would always say, if you've got an open G center, you leave places, not people. You don't end relationships, you leave the location. And that has been so true for me. There have been many relationships that they didn't end in a direct way. Like, I'm in a relationship with you. I just, you know, somebody got in the car and drove away. And then we were in a new environment and everything changed. So that makes a lot of sense to me with the open G center too.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alok will be joining us on Tuesday on here.
Yay! My.
Yeah. And right now you're doing Living Your Design Guide teacher training.
Yes. Mouthful.
I was thinking about that this morning, and I was like, it's just like, you know, sometimes you'll just have a hit of awareness. And I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to do LID guide training with Amy and John, and that's why I didn't hop in with a lock, because I think I'm actually supposed to learn it from you guys. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I still want to, but it was a no to do it with him. And I'm like, oh.
I know, my mind was like a lock, and then I didn't have the energy to even like respond to the emails, and I was like, why don't you know? And so I gauged that. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have the energy. That's a no. Like, I don't know. My mind is like, what the hell? You have this opportunity to be with Amy, John, and a lock, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's been really cool. I mean, it's really rich. It's really deep. It's a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's deep.
Yeah, he's very deep. I mean, I don't know if it was just like, it's always a timing thing for me because I'm emotional. And I feel like when it was starting, I was going through a lot internally and with my wave. And I was just like, I can't take it in even, you know? So it's always a timing thing, but.
Yeah, I trust the fractals so much. I trust timing so much now. That's been another just massive gift from under design, that my mind's sense of timing and what things are supposed to happen is so inadequate to deal with life as it is, and everything's going to happen in its own time. It's so relaxing. It's like sign up for a class, or we're going to meet at this time, or we make this plan and then it changes and something, you know, it's like, it's all fine. It's all fine.
Oh, gravy, baby.
Yeah. But while you're in it and you're going through like another mini shattering, you're like, what? You know?
Yeah. 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 Isn't it so cool? It's so cool in interactions to, you know, it's like when if you miss an appointment or you make a mistake, like, isn't it so nice when somebody's just cool about it, you know? Yeah. There's something about that too that's like, yeah, you know, everything was going this way, and then at the last minute, whoop, things kind of went like whatever, and it's not a problem, you know? So yeah, this class with him, this training with him has been fascinating on that level. A lot of things shifted around, and it's fine. And yeah, I think we will eventually get there. We've had so much fun taking people through rave cartography, and they're usually such a bond gets created among people. And I'm hoping that if we have that one last piece, it'll feel like a completion. Something that'll feel like a completion, because even now still we get to the end of cartography and there's this sort of like, what are we doing together? Like, it's not over. You know,
that's how we felt.
That was
like, we demanded more. We're like, we're not done.
We're not done with you.
And I just noticed, Amy, you have hanging 42. So I'm sure you're like feeling that the cycle is not complete sometimes and there's more to be done, you know?
Yep. Yep. For sure. Yeah. That one's a big one. Yeah. So hopefully we'll do that. And I hope that'll feel like a completion piece. Although it's really funny because I think Living Your Design is the hardest one of the foundation courses to lead. It's the hardest one to start to. It's the hardest one to run, I think, because you've got to be really strong. You got to be really clear in what you're putting across, and not getting seduced by other people's, and how convinced they can be that their problems really are a problem. And so real discipline to be able to, you know, hold the frequency of your own, for me it does, to hold the frequency of my own awareness, and just be a stake in the ground for people that first, you know, in the first entry point. But such beautiful work, and I'm really grateful for it. And I love, I've heard other people say this, but I just love the people I've gotten to meet through it too. It's all really woven the way really beautifully, who showed up in our realm. So for it. So hopefully we'll do that. We'll let you know. We'll let you know.
Yeah.